Okay, so next up, we're running on time, and we'll begin with the key speech given by Anne-Françoise Schmid. I see Anne-Françoise is preparing the PowerPoints, so I'm going to just stop the sharing maybe for a minute, or here it is. So Anne-Françoise, are you able to put up the slides?
To put up?
Yeah, just to start the slides, PowerPoint or PDF, whichever. The sharing screen is enabled.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll have an hour roughly. Anne-Françoise will dedicate roughly an hour. Maybe all of it will be used up with her speech, or maybe some portion will be left for a few questions. And after that, we're going to get into the cycle of presenters, starting with Professor Kazashi, Nobuo, and onwards with myself and Professor Gango. All right, so let's get started. Anne-Françoise, if you can't hear the slides, I can do it for you, or maybe Jeremy can do it for you. So which one do you prefer?
I can partage.
Okay, so let's get started then. So we're very punctual. It's 7 p.m. here in Tokyo, and elsewhere I'll let you all do the math. So this is the official time zone, and we can begin. All right, Anne-Françoise, you have the floor.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but we're not seeing the slides yet. If they're not shared.
Yeah. So?
Can you share the slides so we can all see?
Aïe, aïe, aïe. Là.
It's okay. I'll share it for you then. How about this? Is it good?
Voilà.
Tu peux
juste
me dire le suivant et je vais changer.
Attends. D'accord, yeah. D'accord. Alors, vas-y. Partage l'écran.
Yeah, c'est partagé.
Ça y est. Hi. From non-standard philosophy to absolute nothingness. Is there a common equal X? I am not a specialist of Japanese philosophy. Je suis désolé. But I know a little Laruelle philosophy. So, le suivant. So, the abstract, through non-standard philosophy, can we postulate and construct a common equal X with the Japanese thought of the Kyoto School? This is the stake of this talk, to construct some philosophical creation through an unknown that we nevertheless assume shareable. The X of the common has two functions: that this construction would not be direct in neglecting, and that it conserves a form of the unknown that assumes respect. The speaker situates herself from the point of view of non-philosophy, a practice she uses. Non-philosophy partially makes her recognize both its non-knowledge, the state of non-art, and the possibility of a generic where some concepts of heterogeneous origin are combined. We strive to see how this non-knowing allows a perhaps unheard of bond. Le suivant. The waves of the work of Laruelle. The waves is a term of Laruelle. Through the steps of the common equal X within the work of François Laruelle. 1. Critique of phenomenology, repetition and negation. 2. Difference and the machinic, the quadripartite. 3. The one, unified differences. 4. Non-philosophy, the exclusion of sufficient philosophy. 5. Non-standard philosophy, the salvaging of philosophy. 6. Forced philosophy, the ascent towards the universe. Le suivant. One, common equal X. The question, how does one unify the philosophies, science and philosophy, and other disciplines, Western philosophies and Eastern philosophies, and inversely, Eastern philosophies with Western philosophies. Le suivant. Plan of the talk. 1. The common equal X. 2. At the start of the work of François Laruelle. 3. Repetition and negation in published work. 4. The insufficiency of the machinic and difference, the one. 5. The introduction of verticality. 6. What would an absolute nothingness be? Le suivant. X as an unknown. The X signifies that the common is not given. The common is pointed between 2 points of philosophy, points that are both full and void. To construct bonds between philosophies does not consist in completing a puzzle. The point is not to cover over a given and known surface. In the face of these bonds to conceive, we are not only in the face of uncertainty, but in the face of the unknown. The unknown is not a limit of impossibility, but an element on which we rely to make a bond live, where the unknown will never be completely lifted. Philosophies as a condition of sensibility and are sensible to condition at the limit, not those of the nation, but perhaps those of a distancing that is not calculable. Le suivant. Decomposition of the X within Laruelle. 1. Non-naturalist concepts. Not life, but lived without life. Given without givenness. Both arise from the critique of the phenomenology. 2. Knowledge and non-knowledge. Learned knowledge and unlearned knowledge. Savoir indocte. Indocte. Le suivant. Conditions of this unknown. First, non-knowledge is a state of non-art. This expression is due to Armand Hatchuel, Mind School in Paris, state of non-art. And second, the construction process of a generic space. We thought with philosophies and not in a particular philosophy. Le suivant. State of non-art. To construct the common equal X, it does not suffice in sharing knowledges, but of constructing our non-knowledge in touch with the other. This allows a rewriting of our knowledge, disciplinary or non-disciplinary. Within Laruelle, learning knowledge, the cloud of unknowing, le nuage d'inconnaissance. Le suivant. 2. In the beginning of the œuvre. It is a relation to phenomenology. This original relation can help in the construction of this common equal X through the concept of intentions, always in movement, as in the underdetermination of phenomenology. Le suivant. The relation to phenomenology remains unmanifest in published works. With the publication of the principal thesis of François Laruelle, phenomenology will appear as one of the sources of his philosophical work. There is an edition to be published by Jordanko Sekulovsky. Suivant. Repetition unravels the identities of phenomenology. To repeat is to transform the identities in an incessant movement of intentions and process, breaks, inscription, synthesis, and consummation. Le suivant. Repetition and inscription within a topos. The topos lays still at the level of differential functioning. One can make the hypothesis that later the topos will be abandoned for the one, separated from differential functioning. The suivant. Repetition and negation within the published work. Repetition and the quadripartite. With the quadripartite, repetition becomes machinic. It is combined with a process and inscribed onto a topos or a cora. Quadripartite, Nietzsche, Heidegger, affirmation, négation, yes, no. Generalization of negation. It can no longer be only on the verb. How does one unify repetition and negation? The question of the separated one, but not an absolute one. Le suivant. The machinic and the abandonment of phenomenology. The game of intentions without phenomenology is transformed into a differential movement within the quadripartite. In Le déclin de l'écriture, Nietzsche contre Heidegger. Nietzsche finally allows oneself to be detached from Heidegger and phenomenology. Later on, a course on non-phenomenology. 4. Sufficiency of the machinic and difference, the one. Within the machinic movement, intention becomes both what sets in motion and the ingredient of the movement. Stopping this circle. The one approached by Heidegger, but not developed by him. This change in his philosophy tormented Laruelle. He departed from the norm of French philosophy at that time. Le suivant. With the one, there is separation, but not absolute separation. Radical separation, plutôt. The one, or generic human, is indifferent to philosophy. But the one is a condition of philosophy, and philosophies, their multiplicity without sufficiency, and other human productions, without limitation and without contention. La suite. The negation extends the movements. Through the one, negation concerns the names, then the adjectives, not only the verbs. It's an extension of philosophy, relations to other philosophies, relations of separation and fusion with other disciplines. Le suivant. Can we stop the movements? The altar pieces. There is always some movement within Laruelle's thought. His published work are like altar pieces which fix for a moment the waves of the oeuvre. To the left of the altarpiece, the state of philosophy without transformation. In the center of altarpiece, the machine of transformation. And to the right, the effects of these transformations. La suivante. 5. The introduction of verticality. Since the work on Ravesson, there exists a verticality under the form of the linea serpentinata. It's a mobile verticality, like what one can contemplate within Michelangelo, both art and grace in the theological sense, non-religion. The new forms of verticality. In ecology, an ecology with horizontality circle the earth does not suffice. Laruelle introduced verticality here. In the transformation of philosophy, not only a non-philosophy, what is exclusion, no longer a non-standard philosophy, the salvage of philosophy without sufficiency, then forced philosophy which, aided by generic and the quantum, can leave the cave and the world for the universe. Laruelle also speaks of forcing with ph or teleportation, metaphor also allowing an ascent towards the universe. Le suivant. There are stages in this ascent. This stage allows fusion between philosophy and science and the science, or between philosophy and technology and the technology, or between philosophy and psychanalysis and the psychanalysis, etc. A way to suppress philosophical sufficiency. These stages are Kant and Einstein, and Planck and Marx, and Nietzsche and Paul G. Cohen, the mathematician who invents the forcing. There are just as much philo-scientific machines as determination without exclusion of the alliance between the generic philosophy, the quantum, what Laruelle calls reminiscence. E is the imaginary number between algebra and geometry. Le suivant. These stages coincide with a paramusical philosophy. One breathing the earth, two melody, the human voice, who is the transcendental, three counterpoint, who is universe. It's the construction of tetralogos. The subject The subject is not the generic human. I prefer human as man because man is the opposite of woman. Bon, the subject is not generic man. The subject is an aleatory subject homesia. The subject is fit for all stages. Ensuite, c'est rien, c'est le téléphone. Back to the humans. Music slowly descends back towards human and gives a musical meaning to their lived without life. A void of great notion, not life, not nature, so many naturalist concepts, no, but of the living algebraically distributed and combined man, human, animal, plant. 6. What would an absolute nothingness be? Perhaps something which transcends to naturalizing notion, life, nature, etc. But it is a superficial and quasi-idealist interpretation. Suivant. Or yet non-knowledges and unlearned knowledges. They are fundamental in Laruelle. They allow relations with other disciplines and relations from one philosophy to another philosophy. But they are not absolute. Separation in Laruelle are overt and without negation, because negation is displaced in its meaning. Negation does not exclude, and in its function, negation contributes to extensions. Back to the unknown. Can we fulfill the intention of the conference? Can an unknown allow a bond? It can, on the condition that it can be susceptible to variations. The unknown, the inscrutable, the inaccessible. Whereas the on or the in would not be exclusive, but indirectly designates the necessary limits with mutual respect. The decomposition of this unknown, an hypothesis to be corrected. In forced philosophy, generic, absolute nothingness, void, non-philosophy, raised from the philosophy of Heidegger, non-standard philosophy, affirmation of the Japanese philosophy of Kyoto, forced philosophy, Japanese philosophy and painting details the living and immanence. Thank you for welcoming me. With the wish that Nishida Kitarō and his disciples will be better now in the West. Thank you to those who participate in this task. There is Japanese philosophy and there is Western philosophy. I have not other term. Thank you very much to you.
Thank you, Anne-Françoise. That was, we have a lot of time actually to address questions. Thank you for the great talk, and this, you covered quite novel aspects of Laruelle's work. So I imagine for a lot of people, a lot of the vocabulary and a lot of the ideas presented are still quite unknown or unfamiliar. So we'll do our best to actually elucidate to anyone who wants to engage in a conversation. So I'll open the floor now for Q&A. So please step forward and you can use those, reacticons, whatever it's called. You click on it, maybe raise a hand, and we'll see you more easily. You can unmute yourselves and speak out. So do we have any questions or comments?
Is it possible to translate the questions for me?
Yes, I'll do my best.
Thank you very much. Thank
All
you.
right. Let me write it down. Rocco, you can also help out if you can, write down the questions. So let's.
Sure.
Okay. So, Anne-Françoise, can I stop the sharing so we can all just focus on looking at each other, or maybe we can use the slides to go back and forth? And
Yes,
maybe,
yes.
Okay, so I'll keep the slides for the time being.
Yes. The time of the questions. Le temps des questions.
Maybe we can put up this slide so we can see the parallels here that Anne-Françoise made carefully. And if you wish me to go back a slide and address a particular point, just let us know.
It's just hypothesis.
So Anne-Françoise is right. And I mean, the entire workshop, this has never been done before. Laruelle's work has never been compared, at least not in this way and at this length, let's say, with so many participants and researchers like we're trying to do today. So a lot of the things we're going to put forward today, not just Anne-Françoise and everyone else, will be something novel, something we're working on. And it's not a definite take or call on anything, but it's supposed to open up the venue, right, for further inquiry into the work of Laruelle, which it seems that has some kind of compatibility with the philosophers from the Kyoto School and maybe Japanese or even East Asian thought in general. So we'll see how that goes.
I can introduce a question. I'm not seeing. I don't want to jump in line, but is it if there are hands up? Are there? I don't see them, but I don't know if you can see them, Jordan.
I think it's safe to assume that you are okay. Green light.
Okay, great. Anne-Françoise, merci bien. I think this is a very large question, and it's one that maybe would open up a forum for others to step in to make the question more precise. But it seems at the macro level, one of the large questions of encounter between Laruelle and, say, Nishida, Nishitani, Tanabe, is the term nothingness in the Kyoto School juxtaposed with the term one in Laruelle. And it seems that in many ways they serve a similar function, to be a kind of fundamental term that is also a term without limit, right? A term without content, internal structure. But one and nothingness also seem like opposites. So what difference is introduced in shifting from language of one to shifting to language, say, of absolute nothingness?
Yes, we can make the hypothesis that nothingness can be in the place of the one, but it is a difference because the one is indifferent to philosophy, but it is not. It is separated from philosophy, but not in the sense of absolute. The absolute is separated with a sort of unity or totality, what is not the problem of the one. But I think we can have some correspondence. Yes. I do not know if I have answered to the question, because I cannot hear all the nuance of the question by the ear. I now English only to read.
Oui, mon français, c'est la même chose pour moi. Alors,
well, to facilitate, for example, Professor Gangle is capable of speaking French, but not to let him do both French and English. Maybe, Rocky, why don't you go ahead and speak French and let me do the English translation, and I'll do the same for Anne-Françoise at the same time. So you can more easily engage in a conversation, and everyone else, just give us your question. You can even type it in the Zoom chat, and we'll translate it for Anne-Françoise in French. Or if you're capable of speaking in French, just write it down and we'll translate it in English for the rest of those who don't actually speak French.
I could ask a question.
Okay, so can you please, break it down in parts so we can translate it better in French for Anne-Françoise? Hannes, right? Is that the correct pronunciation of your name?
Yes. Should I start and then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Just to continue with Rocco's question. I'm at the moment I'm quite confused with Anne-Françoise's use of the term absolute, because you say it's separated. The one is separated from the differentiation of philosophy, but it's not absolute. And on the other hand, if we have a look at the term absolute, it also etymologically it has this kind of separation in there. And in Nishida, for example, Nishida, I think he wouldn't say it's separated. Actually, it's the absolute nothing is not separated, but actually very much related to everything not absolute. But he would still call it absolute. So there's a kind of chiasm there. So in what sense do you understand the absolute different from the separated? This would be the first question.
Yes.
Thank you.
If it is so, it is possible to make a relationship with the one of Laruelle.
So I'll translate it in French. Donc, Hannes, il pose la question, il y a une confusion dans la manière dont on utilise le terme absolu.
Absolu.
Donc, l'un est séparé donc par différenciation de la philosophie, mais n'est pas absolu. Tant que Hannes, il dit ici que Nishida, le philosophe japonais de l'école de Kyoto, ne sépare pas ce qu'on appelle le néant absolu, absolute nothingness, et donc ce n'est pas séparé. Mais en même temps, Nishida aurait appelé ça l'absolu. Et donc, dans quelle manière tu utilises et tu distingues c'est quoi la confusion? Y a-t-il une confusion ou pas? Donc, c'est comme ça que j'ai compris la question de Hannes.
Oui, le absolu, en français et en latin, de la philosophie dite occidentale, l'absolu suppose une séparation et quelque chose que l'on peut tout à fait séparer. Par exemple, en grammaire latine, l'ablatif absolu, c'est quelque chose qui ne fait pas partie de la phrase, qu'on peut ôter complètement de la phrase. Alors, il y a sans doute d'autres interprétations de l'absolu. Chez François, au fond, le terme de radical est probablement plus important que celui d'absolu. Tu es d'accord, François? François est d'accord sur l'interprétation que je fais de la non-philosophie. Je ne sais pas, il a écouté la conférence, là. Je ne sais pas encore ce qu'il en pense. Mais
go ahead. Si tu n'as pas fini, Françoise, tu peux continuer. Je m'excuse de t'avoir interrompu.
Non, tu ne m'as pas interrompu. Je pense qu'il y a là des éclaircissements à faire de chaque côté sur le terme de absolu. Hein, peut-être que nous n'entendons pas exactement la même chose de l'un à l'autre. Si dans la philosophie japonaise, l'absolu n'est pas une séparation, ça modifie évidemment les interprétations. Dans la philosophie Laruelle, il y a une grande séparation, c'est the one ou the generic human, qui est le réel, et puis qui est indifférent à toutes les créations que les sujets humains peuvent faire. Les sujets, le generic man n'est pas un sujet, hein. Mais le sujet peut reconnaître en lui quelque chose de l'humain. Quelque chose comme ça. Donc, il y a une séparation. Mais cette séparation, c'est une séparation radicale. Ça n'est pas une séparation absolue. Ou quelque chose comme ça.
Jordan, do you want to translate or do you want me to?
I'm writing it down.
Yeah.
My apologies.
No, that's fine. I mean, I can start just by, for those of you listening, that Anne-Françoise was saying that this question of the absolute, which in Laruelle is often subtly distinguished from the radical. So a radical difference is very close to absolute, but doesn't have the same connotation as in the Latin absolute as absolved from relation. So the radical is absolute in that sense, but it's not absolute in the sense of being a separate or transcendent entity. So it would be absolved from relation without being transcendent. And that this plugs into the problem of the subject. If that the generic subject is not a subject in the sense of transcendence, but is a separation, a radical separation from the world, but not an absolute separation. I hope that that's a fair, and then, yeah, Jordan, if you wanted to gloss it as well.
Yeah, I wrote it down, so I'm just gonna repeat what Anne-Françoise said, hopefully accurately. So in Western philosophy, absolute presupposes separation, and there are different interpretations, right? But the term radical, right, it's more important than absolute when it comes to the philosophy of François Laruelle. So we need to clarify the terminology and see what are the different interpretations between the West and Eastern thought and so on, and go maybe even more specific from philosophy to philosophy. Now, the generic human, or so the generic human and the real are indifferent to all creations of any forms of subjectivity, right? The one or the generic human is not a subject, but we can recognize what is human, maybe aspects or attributes. So not absolute, but radical in this sense. So radical would be a better term to use. So I hope that clarifies the question, Hannes.
J'aimerais ajouter quelque chose. La différence entre sujet et humain est très importante pour comprendre les crimes contre l'humanité. Par exemple, dans les génocides, on peut tuer quand on oublie que le sujet est un humain. Et il y a tout un aspect de la philosophie de François Laruelle, autour aussi de la notion d'étranger, qui permet de traiter le problème du crime de l'humain contre l'humain par cette distinction entre le sujet et l'homme générique. Et donc, d'une certaine façon, l'une des conditions de la paix est de reconnaître l'humain dans chaque sujet.
I think I got 60, 70% of your answer additionally. So the distinction between subject and human is very important, especially when it comes to dealing with, let's say, crimes against humanity, right? It is easy to commit murder, so to speak, if we forget that the subject is human. And therefore, one of the conditions of peace to establish peaceful relations is to
Reconnaître.
To recognize, right? Distinguish the human in the subject. So yeah, I hope I got that one right. Rocky, you can correct me if you think there's anything missing.
No, it's not. I think we have a couple new questions. I think it was, I'm not sure who, I think it's a gentleman whose name tag is L Rose. I believe he had a question, and then maybe, and Stanimir Panayotov.
This is a faculty member of TUJ, Professor Lee Roser. Welcome, and you have the floor. Go ahead with your question, and I'll translate it in French. So if you can give it to me in bits and pieces, so I can translate it more accurately.
Yes, I just have a simple statement to make. It's not so complicated. About Nishida, as I understand it, central to his thinking would be contradiction, both as a problem and actually as a resolution. So that when Nishida speaks of absolute nothing or nothingness, it's simultaneously being. He clearly states that. So it's like this paradox. It's the absolute contains its own negation. And as its own negation, it manifests multiplicity. So it's not really a relation. It's like this, well, he says contradiction or paradox between the positive and the negative, that the absolute is its own negation, I think very similar to Hegel. So I don't see anything here really as a relation. And this would also apply, he says, to the self. That the self is a contradiction, but it's also, when resolved, it's like a complete paradox. It is without being. That's the logic of Sokuhi. That's central to his thinking here. Just as it is not. I think that's central to his thinking.
Yes.
Anne-Françoise, tu veux rendre la même parole en français ou ça va?
S'il te plaît, j'aimerais une traduction
Oui.
pour avoir toutes les notions.
Donc,
les
professeur Roser, il est membre de faculté de Temple University Japan et
Oui,
il
oui, oui.
enseigne des religions asiatiques. Donc, il est un spécialiste, donc il connaît bien Nishida. Alors, il dit que ce qui est central pour la pensée de Nishida, c'est la contradiction en termes de problème et de résolution en même temps. Donc, le néant et simultanément l'un est néant. Donc, l'absolu contient sa propre négation et multiplicité en même temps. C'est une contradiction, c'est un paradoxe, peut-être ça ressemble un petit peu à la philosophie d'Hegel, mais l'absolu est en même temps la négation de soi-même. Bon, il y avait encore plus ce que le professeur Roser a dit, mais je crois que c'est ça l'essence de ce qu'il voulait dire.
Merci, professeur. Oui, c'est très intéressant. Je pense que peut-être on pourrait transposer ceci sur l'idée de circularité en philosophie, qui chaque fois essaye d'être rompue parce qu'elle est un paradoxe d'une certaine façon, mais elle recommence toujours. Et peut-être qu'on aurait ce problème dans l'interprétation de la circularité des philosophies. La circularité est à la fois un paradoxe et aussi une réalisation. Dans la philosophie occidentale du dernier quart du XXe siècle, par exemple, le philosophe Jacques Derrida a beaucoup réfléchi à ça. Et il ne sort pas du paradoxe, mais il met, comment dire, il introduit dans ce paradoxe les sciences humaines et sociales, la linguistique, l'anthropologie, pour, comment dire, pour briser quelque part cette circularité qu'on ne brise jamais complètement. Et donc, avoir cette relation avec les sciences sociales et linguistiques est une façon de connaître autrement les gestes de la philosophie. Et pour François Laruelle, ce n'est pas exactement cela, mais il y a l'idée que la connaissance de la philosophie ou de la théorie philosophique ne peut pas consister uniquement dans une automodélisation, mais doit être accompagnée d'une autre discipline, et il a choisi la quantique parce qu'elle ne porte pas sur les objets naturels, mais qu'elle porte sur des opérateurs et des états. Mais au fond, je pense qu'on pourrait transposer toute cette problématique du problème et de la résolution sur la question de la circularité philosophique en Occident. Mais c'est une hypothèse, hein, c'est une hypothèse.
I think I got the gist and most of what Anne-Françoise just said, so I would like to ask Rocco to help me out. I think I might miss something. So first of all, thank you, Professor Roser. This is so we can transpose this issue as a problem of circularity in philosophy. So it's a problem of interpretation of this circularity in philosophy. So at the same time, philosophy is a paradox and realization simultaneously. And Western philosophy, for example, Derrida, he thought a lot about this paradox, so to speak, and how we can exit the paradox, but actually we can't. So it's better to, what Derrida did, he reintroduced the social sciences into the paradox mentioned. For Laruelle, it's a bit different, and philosophical theory, philosophical knowledge cannot be based simply on auto-positioning, auto-modeling, so to speak, in and of itself, but has to be accompanied by another discipline. And in the latter work of Laruelle, he chose quantum physics in terms of transposing, and this is I'm adding this, Anne-Françoise didn't say it, but to clarify, because I'm sure Professor Rosa doesn't really won't understand what this means, because we don't read Laruelle at TUJ, unfortunately, yet. So the rational core of the sciences to be transposed, so to speak, and transplanted into philosophy by abandoning the traditional metaphysical core of, let's say, a kind of modus operandi. And this is important because in any case, philosophical operators do not operate on natural objects, right? And therefore, philosophy is caught in a circular fashion of auto-positioning, auto-modeling, auto-referencing objects that it creates itself. So I'm not sure how much sense this made, but I did my best. So
thank you, Jordanko.
Rocco, do you think I've missed anything? Can you add something?
Rose gives us a great field of work to articulate Japanese philosophy with Zen philosophy. Yes, I think it is very important.
I think that, I mean, rather than introduce any nuances here, just in the interest of time, I would recommend that we turn to Stanimir Panayotof's question, and then I believe there was a question from Mahbub in the Mahbub Ghani in the chat. So maybe we have time for those two questions.
Okay, so we have 8 minutes remaining, and let's use them wisely. So let's try to give short. I mean, it's not about the shortness here. We're dealing with translation. So let's try to. I'll try to, condense the answers while I translate them. So let's do our best. Okay, Stanimir, go ahead.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just to be expedient, I typed what I want to say, and to help you with the translation, I'll copy paste it for Rocco and Jordanko, if that's okay. Or should I do this for both of you?
Oh, you can post it to everyone, right? So we can.
Okay. Sorry, I just sent it to both of you, but anyway.
It's fine. Yeah, we can see it.
I'll just kind of read them out. So these are 4 interrelated points. The 4th one is the question, actually. So the first thing is a question, but it's not the real question. It's more also a question to myself in terms of the relationship between non-philosophy and Japanese philosophy and the Kyoto School. So the first one is, isn't the known and the X that you were talking about, Anne-Françoise, Hi. Isn't the unknown different from nothingness? I think it is, but I didn't hear this differentiation out loud in your presentation. And I think that if we don't differentiate the unknown from nothingness, this can be a slippery slope towards a philosophical program rather than a non-philosophical one. The second point is also a kind of question, which is there non-absolute nothingness at all? Isn't nothingness always an absolute form of nothingness? I think it is always absolute, because because the existence of any X or any unknown disrupts the very notion of nothingness or the mode of existence of nothingness. It isn't just, I mean, nothingness isn't just a question of a Parmenidean question of existence of nothingness. And I think if there is something like the radicality of nothingness, it's part and parcel of the absolutism or absoluteness of nothingness as you discussed it. And so given all this, my question actually to you is the following. If the one is indifferent to all, which it supposedly is in non-philosophy, is it also indifferent to nothingness? And it's a little bit of a selfish question because it will help me with my own presentation. Thank you.
I'm just going to pose the last question to everyone, and I hope, Anne-Françoise, tu peux le voir dans le chat. Et donc, si l'un est différent à tout, est-il en même temps différent à néant?
Indifférent.
Ouais, indifférent, ouais.
Je dirais que l'un n'est pas un plein.
The one is not a plane, as in maybe Deleuze or.
Qu'est-ce que tu en penses, François?
L'un, c'est un symbole.
François dit que l'un est un symbole.
So the one is a symbol, and it's not a plane, as in, Deleuzian, let's say, ontology or phenomenology, or whatever we can, come up with. So I'm sorry, we have 4 minutes left. So Anne-Françoise, si tu veux continuer à répondre à cette question, ou peut-être prendre encore une autre question, et on n'a plus de temps.
D'accord.
So Stanimir, we can keep the discussion going later, and especially with the roundtable tomorrow. And Anne-Françoise, tu seras présent, n'est-ce pas, pour la table ronde demain, où on peut et parler.
Il faut, tu m'écriras tout ce qu'il faut pour que je puisse me connecter à la bonne heure, s'il te plaît.
Oui, bien sûr. Donc,
tu m'écriras tout ça pour que je ne me trompe pas.
Oui, absolument.
Très volontiers, très volontiers. En tout cas, je remercie tout le monde. Thanks to all. I am very moved by the connection of these different philosophies, and thanks to all they work on this direction. Thank you, Jordanko.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. Thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Professor Rose, and all that intervene in the discussion. Thank you.
Well, I guess that would be all from Anne-Françoise for today. We're almost 8 p.m. in Tokyo. And I would like to thank Anne-Françoise and everyone who posed the question and gave comments. So just like last night, we can see as easily that this can drag on for a lengthy periods of time. And I'll save all the questions posted in the chat, and we'll bring them up tomorrow during closing roundtable for the conference, and or maybe send to Anne-Françoise by email, and she can also, discuss your questions with François.
Yes.
Which would be
Yes.
great if possible. Yeah.
Yes. Attends, juste une chose.
Yes, you can all see Anne-Françoise's Gmail email, so feel free to mail her directly. I think we solved that problem, and it's time to move on to the next speaker, Professor Nobuo Kazashi, Emeritus Professor from Kobe Graduate School of Humanities, Kobe University, now teaching in Dalian in China. So thank you, Anne-Françoise, and
thank you.
Just you can stay and watch the rest of our presenters. That would be great, and give us your feedback from time to time.